So this presentation has the goal to talk about the disadvantages and the advantages that we have in a sustainable social economic model, and try to analyze if our model that is based on competition is a sustainable or unsustainable system. And I would like to remind us that our society is constantly evolving. We see technological evolution and cultural evolution. And as Dionysius was saying already many centuries ago, is a Greek philosopher, change is maybe the only constant in our society. So the current socio-economic model is designed around some assumptions. Humans are intrinsically and inevitably selfish. They are not capable to operate operate a society without an extrinsic motivator, which means they cannot be motivated by their own will to contribute to society. And competition and stress are the best way to solve problems and work efficiently. And we cannot trust each other to manage efficiently the resources without money. So, the value of a product and service that we produce in this current socio-economic model is usually proportional to how much the product is appreciated from the market, the people, and the quantity of the product we can produce and sell in the market. As I said, our socio-economic model is based on the use of this technology we call money. The technical functions of this technology is a medium of exchange, is a unit of account, and is a store of value. From the social functioning, what we can say is that the money works as an extrinsic motivator. If you can pay enough, you can basically create a motivation within people to do something that they wouldn't do if you wouldn't pay them. So you don't need to explain why something is important to them. So for my analysis, I would like to propose a categorization of social-economic models. And I would like to try to separate the social-economic models in sustainable socio-economic models and unsustainable socio-economic models. And now I would like to try to give my personal definition of what I mean by sustainable and unsustainable. In this graph, we can see the behavior of what I would call a sustainable, is just an example of sustainable economic model. It's a model where we see two curves, the positive attributes that are blue and the negative attributes. The positive attributes, we could say, is a symbolic representation of all the advantages and the benefit we get applying this socioeconomic model. And the red curve, the negative attributes, is all the unwanted effects and the side effects that we inevitably produce from the application of this socioeconomic model. What we observe is that the curve never touch each other. So the positive attributes are always more than the negative attributes. And if I add a new curve, the benefit, which means the gain, the difference between what we lose and what we gain applying this model, we see that these benefits continue to grow, or at least they never go down. This is instead a curve that, in my opinion, would belong to an unsustainable socioeconomic model. You see the positive attributes grow very quickly in the beginning, exponentially, then they start declining and they reach a plateau. While the negative attributes, they grow very slowly in the beginning, but then they start increasing to the point where inevitably they will cross the positive attributes, which means that we are talking about a model that produce if you look on the green curve, and a very quick increase of the benefits, we reach a peak of the benefits produced by that current paradigm. And then we start observing a decline. That is due to the fact that the negative attributes continue to grow, but the positive don't grow anymore. So here I propose a comparison. Usually, often happens that if you compare in the same period of time two models, one is unsustainable, like the red curve, and one is sustainable, you see that the unsustainable is more advantageous in the short period of time, but then start to go to crisis, and at one point there is a shift. There is a point where the sustainable model becomes more beneficial than the other one, so either we shift to the new model or we go towards crisis. So now the challenge is our system a sustainable system, or is our system an unsustainable system? To do this, we should of course first try to study the relevant attributes, the positive and the negative, and then draw a conclusion. We could identify the general characteristic of our socioeconomic model generated probably around a couple of centuries ago. So if you look on this, let's say, the evolution we had in the last centuries, we can certainly say that we had a dramatic increase in productivity, a dramatic improvement in health and situation and life expectancy. We had a dramatic increase in education and communication capabilities. It is, we observe, especially now with the social networks, that our capacity to connect and exchange information is dramatically increasing. And this allows people to access an increasing amount of knowledge and to connect with each other. And we are becoming to behave more and more like neurons of a larger brain. We could say we are becoming to behave more and more like a superorganism, crowd intelligence. So it's safe to say that a king 100 years ago, like King George V, had much less resources available than we have now. To give a closer look to how different socioeconomic models work, we could compare countries that were unified until the Second World War. For instance, there is a big difference compared to development of the Eastern Germany compared to the Western Germany until they removed the wall. And there is even greater difference between South Korea and North Korea development. Sorry. And what are the socio-economical advantages of the application of this model? First of all, it's very easy to apply and very easy to understand. And very easily involves people, even when they have very low degree of education and very low degree of the awareness of what is a society. That is because this system is based on what we can define a narrow self-interest. It is a very powerful tool. It can become almost addictive, and it's very easy to use it to motivate people to work more and more in order to satisfy an infinitely growing amount of needs. So this system is very good because it can create a self-sustaining motivational engine that pushes society to evolve and go forward, but is based on self-interest. So, narrow self-interest plus extrinsic motivator. This is a very powerful tool to be used in a society that is quite primitive. It helps to bypass the need to trust each other and allows a few skilled people to organize large number of individuals to do a specific activity. In the last 2 centuries, we see great steps forward, as we mentioned before. Population grew exponentially from 1 billion to 7 billion. Life expectancy more than doubled. Cultural development, it's extremely improved. Nearly everyone now knows how to read and write, at least in our, what we call, developed countries. We abolished slavery. We increased the women's rights. Now women have right to vote. There is less and less sexual discrimination. And we reduced the working hours to 40 every week, and we increased the workers' rights. So the question is the behavior that our model similar to this curve, where we have an exponential increase of positive attributes, but then we start reaching a plateau and we can't continue to grow these positive attributes? To do this, we should talk about economy, because this model is based on the GDP growth, so on economic growth, which means not necessarily wellness growth. So can we find some limits to this GDP growth? The first limit I would find is population growth limits. A market is composed by individuals. More individuals you have, more people can buy something. So if you study the human population evolution, we see that the human population has been growing exponentially up to the 1963, where we reached the peak of growth per year with the 2.2%. Since that point, it's been declining constantly and almost regularly. And at the current state, in 2012, we are around to 1% growth per year. There is also another very interesting milestone. Professor Hans Rosling, one of the best statists and expert in statistics applied to society that we know, released on Twitter a news that said that on March 2012, the kids born in the world did not grow compared to February. So we are moving towards stabilization. And that is the first limit to the market. Then there is a limit with the total amount of physical goods that we can consume. We have limits in amount of services that we need to buy. And at one point, there will be a limit of the amount of digital products that we can buy. There is only so many movies you can watch in 24 hours. So at least we have 2 very interesting limits. One is the population growth limit, one is the consumption limit. And it's very difficult to overcome these limits in this planet, at least. So now we should check the red curve, the negative attributes, if they fit with the definition I gave you. We know that in these centuries we have been developing technologies, machines, computers, then they merge in cybernetic robotics. We have developing of internet. We are moving now to nanotechnologies and system to produce a large scale of food, basically without need of people around. So the question is, what about the limits to the availability of the jobs? What we observe is that the jobs being automized are constantly increasing, while the new job created in our system are constantly decreasing. And just to give some maybe funny example, not many maybe of you knows that the Google cars are the first autonomous car that have been tested for 2 years. They drive without a person, and they can be more efficient than humans and have much less accidents than humans. We are developing system for mass production of food, completely automatic, there is coming very soon to mass a technology called 3D printing, which allows us to have a three-dimensional digital model of an object and actually produce this object in the real world, just pushing a button. And one very nice application of the 3D printing is what is called countercrafting 3D printing, which is the capability to print a full working house in 24 hours, has been tested now in Los Angeles, I think, and also in Canada, they're working on it. And think about how many people can work when you can produce a house in 24 hours, completely automatically, with a person that has only to fill the feed. And this house will be complete with all the pipings, all the services, and the roof. So, are we all going to be journalists? Well, I have a bad news for you, because in the last 5 years we've been developing algorithms that can actually write human language and decrypt, understand human language, and they are constantly increasing online. This year in USA, 5% of all the sport articles were actually generated by computers, not human. And according to Christian Hammond, the CTO and co-founder of Narrative Science, which is an emerging corporation from Silicon Valley, within 15 years, about 90% of the news released online will be written by a computer. So good luck for the jobs. And so global unemployment, we observe it's increasing constantly. This is an article from the Figaro. A couple of weeks ago, we reached a new record high in unemployment in Europe, with almost 11% unemployment. And in the 2010, about 6 million new unemployed added to the 196 million previously existing unemployed. So what are the, let's say, most obvious consequences of unemployment? We have less monetary resources to spend on the market, so we have a shrinking market. Governments go on strikes because people pay less taxes, they have less money, and corporations make less profit. And the other side, corporations' income decrease. What are the solutions in the monetary system? The government cut public spending, further mining the future of a country, while corporations automate and lay off personnel, which produce more unemployed people. So we fall in a self-sustaining negative cycle. Since I'm Italian, as someone might have noticed from my accent, in Italy, as an example, we were the fourth economic industrial power in the world 20 years ago. And we have been declining since then. And at the current state, we have 32.5% unemployment for younger people than 35 years old, while if you are 45 years old, your skills become very quickly obsolete, which means that if you lose a job, you're most likely not going to find a new job. That produces, of course, exponential growth of debt. And what are the solutions in a socio-economic model? Well, since we are facing bankruptcy, we can only have short-term solutions. So the short-term solutions are increased taxation, elevate retirement age, and reduce vacation, and give tax discounts for extra hours, from extra working hours, which means we are rewarding people to work more years and more hours when we have a 32% unemployed young people, and if you are over 45 years old, you are obsolete, so it's very unlikely that you are any use for society to work over 65 years old. Does it make any sense under the point of view of sustainability? Not, but we have to save the day. We cannot think to the future when you will need to face 6 months bankruptcy When social stress increases, corruption escalates, and as we said, investment in public structure decrease. In Italy, we have a record of the lowest amount of students subscribing to university because there is no future if you have a master degree, and the university is increasing the fee. We can't pay anymore using the money from the taxpayers. We are cutting social welfare. I would like to remind you we were classified, and still are, luckily, within the 3 best healthcare systems in the world, probably now falling very quickly lower. So there is a shift. In the past, to invest in a public structure was an investment in a resource for the future of the society. But when public debt become big, we start considering that only a cost for the taxpayers. So suddenly it's not anymore an investment, it's just a cost. You want to cut it. What about more efficiency and productivity? Every time we increase efficiency and productivity through technology, if you don't want to increase unemployment, we need to increase production. And increasing production, we increase the exploitation of natural resources and energy consumption. Their solution would be reducing the working hours, but this is a solution very difficult to deal with when you have a system based on self-interest and people are pushed to do more. So how many more resources and energy can we squeeze out of this planet? Well, according to the Global Footprint Network, we are already using 1.5 times the resources the planet can offer. And if you don't stop this trend of constant increase of natural resources exploitation, by 2050 we should need about 2 planets. So, what about the sustainability under the sociological point of view? What are the long-term consequences of the application of a model based on competition coupled with an extrinsic motivation? One nice effect in the beginning is the illusion of independency. We think we are not depending on the society, we just need the money to buy what we need, and we don't have to be nice with our neighbor. We can just buy something somewhere else. Important is that you have money. You bypass the need to trust each other, and in fact we are losing this ability. We bypass the need to understand that we are all interconnected and interdependent. So in the long term, we have a loss of motivation, of involvement, which blocks evolution. We have a loss of social cohesion and empathy. And we have an increase of isolation. If you compare the life you have in a city, you might notice that you know less people across the street in a big city, and the more populated is the city, the less people you are likely to know than in a small village. The social skills are complex skills and need to be cultivated and trained. But is our current model giving any reward to do that? Not much, actually. Now I would like to give you a list of what I consider personally a culturally advanced person. This person usually should have an awareness of the intrinsic interconnected nature of our society. We depend from each other. We have to help each other. The awareness that everything we do has an environmental cost, so we should take responsibility for what we do and try to do just what is really relevant. The ability to communicate and collaborate with the others without a monetary reward, just because you understand how important it is to do what you do. And that understanding of how fulfilling and pleasant is actually to contribute to society and help the others and collaborate with them to produce a better society. And then understanding that working less sometimes is better. But can we cultivate and grow these kind of, let's say, attributes in our system when these attributes actually produce a damage to our economy? People that consume less can only reduce our famous GDP, can only reduce the tax paid, can only increase your public debt, and we depend on this public debt. So, in countries, which is now the world, that suffers from saturated markets, every increase of efficiency and automation can only be translated in increase of unemployment. So, in my opinion, we are in a phase where we face the peak of the gain from this model. So we cannot deny this model gave a lot of advantages in the past, but we are now facing the peak of these advantages and moving towards crisis, and we are entering what I would call a paradoxical phase. We are living in a paradox. We can produce more than we can sell, which means we can produce more than we need. We are consuming 1.5 times the resource that the planet can offer, while we don't need all we produce. But we need jobs, and we need to convince each other to consume more so the economy can continue. So, can we flourish in a depleted planet? At least until we have technology to go to Mars? And the question is, will we have the resources in the future to give a traditional job to 8 billion people with the technologies that we will have in 2040? This socioeconomic model, in my opinion, was never designed to produce a steady state economy. Was never designed to face increasingly complex challenges that require a much greater collaboration and motivation between people. It was not designed to develop a peaceful and more united society that overcome challenges as a family rather than competing with each other for the resources to keep their economy growing. Science, especially sociological sciences, are starting to give different, let's say, answers to the assumptions that are what we base our model on. We are actually very social animals. We are gifted with incredible empathy capacities, and we can even extend this empathy to the environment and other species, like cats, dogs. But that needs to be cultivated, of course. When it comes to creativity and ability to solve complex problems, it's actually much better to have self-direction, passion and purpose rather than competition and pressure for a monetary reward. And our behavior is drastically shaped by culture and the environment where we live. So we should take care very carefully about the environment where we grow our kids and ourselves. So, and this system was not designed for the current levels of productivity and automation. Was not designed for these levels of population, was designed for 1 billion people population. And the level of complexity of the challenges we will need to overcome is just constantly increasing. So, in my opinion, should be either dramatically updated or gradually substituted. So I would like to conclude saying that the world is going to change with or without you. So get ready.